How Rome fell, how the collapse of money destroyed an empire. When people think of Rome's fall, the same scenes appear before their eyes. Barbarians at the gates, legions in disarray, senators poisoned in the shadows. Yet empires rarely fall from a single blow. They decay from within, slowly, silently, and over time. And the clearest sign of that decay is often the money itself. Rome fell not only to invasions or corruption, but also because its currency lost value. The lessons of that collapse still apply to every modern economy that says, a little adjustment to the balance of money won't hurt. For centuries, the backbone of Rome's economy was the silver denarius. Minted around 211 BCE, the coin was almost pure silver. It paid soldiers, settled merchants' debts, and served as the people's savings. It carried the same credibility as the empire itself. As long as Rome was strong, faith in its money endured. But keeping an empire alive is expensive. Legions demanded pay. Roads and aqueducts had to be built and maintained. By the 2nd century CE, as both external threats and internal unrest grew, tax revenues could no longer cover the costs. The emperors turned to an old but easy remedy: debasement. Instead of raising taxes and angering the people, they reduced the silver content of the coin. Under Augustus, the denarius was about 95% silver. By the time of Caracalla, it had fallen to around 50%. Under Gallienus, it dropped below 5%. What was once solid metal became a bronze disc coated with a thin layer of silver. People could even hear the difference. The sound of their coins had changed. The result was inevitable: inflation. Money no longer reflected real value. Prices soared. Daily life was shaken. What once cost a single denarius now required dozens. This was not just a number. It was a crisis that shattered soldiers' pay, merchants' trade, and peasants' livelihoods. Soldiers demanded higher wages. Merchants refused low-quality coins and turned to gold or barter. Local markets reverted to trade by exchange. As trust eroded, the state minted more money. As supply rose, value fell, and the vicious cycle deepened. Between 235 and 284 CE came the crisis of the 3rd century, the peak of this downward spiral. Invasions, plagues, civil wars, and coups followed one another. Emperors rose and fell within months. Behind the chaos lay a collapsed fiscal system, worthless tax revenues, abandoned farmlands, shattered trade routes. The state tried everything: price controls, forced labor, but when the foundation was rotten, no measure could hold. In 301, Emperor Diocletian issued the edict on maximum prices to stitch the wound. He fixed the prices of over 1,000 goods and services and punished violators with death. But when money no longer inspires confidence, no law can preserve value. The black market thrived. Official trade died. Soon after, Rome abandoned the denarius altogether. In 312, Constantine introduced the gold solidus, restoring stability for centuries in Byzantium. But for Western Rome, it was too late. Monetary decay had already hollowed out the empire's economic heart. Armies went unfunded, trade collapsed, trust vanished. Rome's fall was not a single event, but a long unraveling, and the thread that pulled it apart was the collapse of its money. Today, the picture feels familiar. To destroy money is to destroy empires. Rome thought it could deceive its people with coins that looked the same but had lost their substance. Modern states, too, fall into this illusion, printing paper, manipulating interest rates, inflating debt away. The outcome never changes. The public pays the price, wealth erodes, confidence dies. History has repeated this lesson again and again since Rome. Weimar Germany tried to ease its post-World War I debt by printing money. By 1923, a loaf of bread cost billions of marks. People hauled their wages in wheelbarrows. When money lost meaning, despair took hold, and that despair nourished extremism. In the 2000s, Zimbabwe followed the same path. Faced with falling production and crushing debt, it turned to the printing press. By 2008, prices doubled almost daily, and the nation was forced to abandon its currency. Each time, the truth was the same. You cannot defy the laws of economics any more than those of physics. These are not just extreme examples. Even advanced economies bear Rome's imprint. In 1971, U.S. President Richard Nixon cut the dollar's link to gold. Money was no longer tied to something tangible, but to faith in government. Over the following decades, debt ballooned, money supply expanded, and inflation became a permanent undercurrent. No one carries wages in wheelbarrows today, but purchasing power quietly slips away. What cost $1 in 1971 now costs many times more. The paper looks the same, its worth does not. This slow erosion hides behind bright words. Wage increases are sold as prosperity, though prices climb faster. Debt is rebranded as investment, though it often funds consumption. Rising stock markets are hailed as wealth, though most people own no shares. As in Rome, appearances are preserved while real value vanishes in silence. A vast neoclassical allegorical painting symbolizing the fragility of the modern global economy. At the center of the composition, a colossal globe rests upon crumbling marble pillars engraved with the words debt, faith, and fiat. Around it stand personifications of the world's central banks, draped in robes of gold and gray, holding scrolls and printing plates that glow with artificial light. Below them, crowds of ordinary people reach upward with empty hands, symbolizing wages, pensions, and savings eroded by inflation. In the background, faint silhouettes of Rome, Weimar Germany, and Zimbabwe appear in a continuous arc of history, their ruins fading into the modern skyline. A storm gathers on the horizon, and the golden light that once signified wealth turns cold and pale. Inspired by Jacques-Louis David and Jean-Auguste Dominique Ingres, the composition is monumental, moral, and prophetic, an image of a world balanced on paper promises. For the individual, the lesson is clear. Inflation is rarely an accident. It is a choice, a silent tax that has worked for 2,000 years. True wealth lies in what endures when money fails: land, skill, productive enterprise, resources. And above all, stability is never permanent. Tell a Roman of the 1st century that his coin would one day be worthless, and he'd laugh. A German in 1913 would never imagine hauling cash in carts. Zimbabweans of the 1980s believed independence guaranteed prosperity. Yet the story always unfolded the same way, slowly, then all at once. When money ceases to be real, the fabric of society unravels. Contracts break down, trade halts, armies disband, governments lose legitimacy. The barbarians at the gate may strike the final blow, but the fatal wound often comes from the treasury within. History may not repeat itself exactly, but if misunderstood, it crushes with the same weight. Rome's monetary crisis was more than the failure of bad emperors or greedy elites. It was a warning about how power corrodes the very foundation of money. And that fragility still stands, right at the center of our lives today. If this story broadened your perspective, stay curious. History whispers answers to most questions if you know where to listen.